They called her just the housekeeper, but Maria Santiago was so much more. She wasn't born into money. She wasn't born into safety. She was born in a small town in Honduras, where mothers raised their children between earthquakes and empty shelves. At 18, she left home with nothing but a backpack and a photo of her baby girl, Sophia, 2 years old, left behind with Maria's mother until she could build a better life in the United States. Maria cleaned houses during the day, waited tables at night, and studied English between shifts. She lived in a tiny room above a garage, with a mattress on the floor and dreams tucked inside a shoebox under the bed. But she was proud of every dollar she sent home, proud of every bruised hand and sore back that meant her daughter had food. She didn't need applause. She just needed purpose. By the time Sophia turned 6, Maria finally earned enough to bring her to the U. So, that was the happiest day of her life. But happiness was never something Maria could keep for long. One rainy October morning, she was hired by the Waltham family, rich, white, old Connecticut money, the kind of people who had wine cellars and heated toilet seats. Their house was huge, 5 bedrooms, a library, a garden for show, and a sunroom no one ever used. Maria's job was simple. Make sure everything looked perfect. Make sure she stayed invisible. She was told not to use the front door. She ate lunch in the laundry room. She was asked not to speak unless spoken to. Still, she smiled. She needed the job. She needed the insurance. She needed to keep Sophia in school. So she made herself small, not because she was weak, but because she was wise. Mrs. Waltham never learned Maria's last name. Mr. Waltham never made eye contact. Their kids never said thank you, but Maria noticed everything. She noticed how Mr. Waltham's smile disappeared the second his wife left the room. She noticed how their daughter wore long sleeves in summer. She noticed the empty wine bottles piling up behind the trash. She noticed, but she said nothing. She folded sheets with corners sharper than their manners. She scrubbed bathtubs that hadn't been used in months. She arranged flowers for parties she wasn't invited to. Every Thursday at 4:00 p.m. Maria walked Sophia home from school. It was the only hour she carved out for herself for them. They'd get empanadas from the street cart. Sophia would tell her about math quizzes and best friends and boys with bad haircuts. Maria would listen like it was music. She kept every drawing Sophia gave her, even the stick figures with 3 arms. She hung them on the fridge in their small apartment like fine art. At night, she prayed, not for more money, just for strength. Strength to keep going. Strength to protect Sophia from the ugliness she'd already seen too much of. Maria believed in hard work, in keeping your head down, in earning respect quietly. But respect never came. Not from the Walthams. Not even when she worked weekends. Not even when she caught their son sneaking in at 3 a.m, high and bleeding, and patched him up without a word. Still, she hoped. She told herself, be patient. Good people are rewarded. But one Friday morning, that hope would shatter. It started like any other day. Chilly, grey, the kind of morning where the sky forgets to wake up. Maria brewed coffee, fluffed pillows, and ironed a blouse that didn't belong to her. At 9:17 a.m, a knock came at the door. Not the front door, of course not. The back door, the help door. She opened it to find 2 police officers and Mrs. Waltham, with her arms crossed and her mouth curled like sour milk. Maria Santiago, one officer asked. Yes, Maria said, confused. You're being accused of theft. Maria blinked. Theft, she repeated, as if the word didn't fit in her mouth. Mrs. Waltham raised a manicured finger. My bracelet, she hissed. The diamond tennis bracelet. Gone. She was the only one in the house. Maria's heart dropped, not in panic, in disbelief. She had never stolen so much as a pencil. She didn't even know what a tennis bracelet was, but the officers didn't care. They asked her to come with them. Sophia watched from the sidewalk, frozen, silent, her backpack still slung on one shoulder. Maria didn't cry. Not yet. She simply turned to Sophia and said, It's okay, mi amor. I'll be home soon. But home would never be the same again. Maria didn't sleep that night, not even a little. She sat on the couch, still wearing the same clothes she had on when the police let her go. No charges, no apology, just a cold shrug and a report that said, insufficient evidence, insufficient. Like her words didn't matter, like her dignity had a price tag, and it wasn't worth much. Sophia sat beside her, silent, too scared to ask questions, too angry to sleep. Maria wanted to hold her, but she was scared that even her hug might feel broken. At sunrise, Maria washed her face and walked into the kitchen. She made Sophia pancakes, even though neither of them could eat. It was what mothers did. They fed their children, even when their hearts were starving. Then the phone rang. She picked it up. A voice said, "Mrs. Santiago, we're calling from Child Protective Services." Her knees gave out. She slid to the floor as the voice kept talking. "There's been a concern raised about the safety and stability of your home environment." She heard the words, neglect and psychological impact and temporary placement. She didn't scream. She just stopped breathing for a moment. That evening, 2 agents came to her apartment. They walked around like it was a crime scene. They looked at the cracked ceiling, the secondhand furniture, the empty fridge. Not because she was negligent, but because she hadn't been paid. They didn't see love. They saw poverty. And in their world, poverty meant danger. Maria tried to explain. She showed them school certificates, report cards, drawings from Sophia with "Best Mom Ever" written in big pink letters. They nodded, wrote notes, and said, "We'll be in touch." 2 weeks later, they came back with paperwork. Sophia had to go, just until we sort things out, they said. Maria didn't cry when they took her daughter. She smiled, a hollow, glass smile, the kind that looks like strength, but cuts from the inside. She waved goodbye. She told Sophia to be brave. She whispered, "Mummy loves you more than anything." Then she closed the door and screamed into a pillow until her throat went raw. On Monday, Maria went back to the Waltham's house. She rang the front doorbell this time. "Mrs." Waltham opened it, her eyebrows raised like Maria was a roach crawling across her marble floor. "You shouldn't be here," she said coldly. "I came to say one thing." Maria replied, "Mrs." Waltham crossed her arms, waiting for an apology, expecting tears, but Maria stood tall. "You know I didn't steal anything," she said, calm and clear. "You know your son has a drug problem." The colour drained from Mrs. Waltham's face, just for a second, then she laughed. A dry, fake laugh. "Do you have proof?" she said, smirking. "I didn't think so." Then she shut the door in Maria's face. Maria didn't go home. She walked for hours, through streets she barely noticed, past lives that had nothing to do with hers. By nightfall, she ended up at the church on 9th Street. She sat in the back row, shaking, not praying, just breathing. An old priest sat beside her. "Your pain is loud," he said gently. Maria blinked back tears. "I did everything right," she whispered. "I worked. I stayed silent. I never complained." The priest looked at her, kind and steady. "Silence can be noble," he said. "But sometimes, it's just another kind of prison." Serfo. The next day, Maria made a decision. No more silence. No more waiting for someone to save her. She took a job cleaning motel rooms during the graveyard shift. And during the day, she went to the library. She didn't tell anyone. Didn't post on Facebook. Didn't seek pity. She sat in the legal section. She read every book with rights in the title. She watched court videos on YouTube until her eyes burned. She wrote down questions, terms, how to file a motion, how to subpoena records, how to represent yourself in small claims court. She was still tired, still broke, still broken, but something had awakened, something fierce, something focused. Maria had no law degree, no fancy office, no powerful connections, but she had the one thing none of them had, a truth, and she was going to learn how to use it like a weapon. One evening, while cleaning room 203 of a roadside motel, she found a crumpled newspaper in the trash. The front page headline read, "Local teen arrested for drug possession. Parents refused to press charges." And there it was. Brandon Waltham, age 18, booked for heroin possession and resisting arrest, released to parental custody. No charges filed. Maria took a photo of the article, then clipped it out and folded it into her Bible. Her hands trembled, not from fear, from clarity. She didn't know how, she didn't know when, but now she had something they couldn't deny. And for the first time in weeks, Maria smiled. Not a glass smile, not a forced one, but a real, dangerous, knowing smile. Because she had just found the first crack in their perfect world. Maria carried the newspaper clipping everywhere, folded in 4, tucked behind the family photo in her wallet. She didn't show it to anyone. Not yet. It wasn't time. Truth was a powerful thing, but only when you knew exactly when to drop it. So, she waited. She studied. She worked overnight at the motel bleach on her hands, legal code in her brain. Each morning, she circled a different law term to learn. Hearsay, chain of custody, character defamation. The words were heavy, but Maria was heavier now, not in her body, but in her presence. She was no longer the invisible maid, not even to herself. One Wednesday afternoon, Maria sat outside the courthouse library, watching people come and go, lawyers in suits, interns with clipboards, janitors with mops. One woman walked out sobbing, holding a court order in one hand and a baby in the other. Maria knew that look. Defeat, wearing lipstick. She stood up, walked over, and handed the woman a bottle of water from her bag. "You're not alone," Maria said softly. The woman nodded, tears spilling. They didn't exchange names, but that moment lit something inside Maria. Maybe, someday, when her battle was over, she'd help women like that, too. Back at the motel that night, Room 109 left her a $5 tip and a candy bar. She tucked the money in her jar. She gave the candy bar to the homeless man who waited near the bus stop. Every act had purpose now. Every day felt like sharpening a blade she couldn't yet swing. Then, something happened. An envelope arrived at her apartment. No return address. Just her name in thick, black ink. Maria opened it carefully. Inside was a photo granny, printed from a security camera. It showed Brandon Waltham at a pawn shop. Behind the counter, a tennis bracelet. The same kind Mrs. Waltham accused Maria of stealing. On the back of the photo, scribbled in shaky pen, a check 8th Street pawn, May 12th, 10:43 T. Main, 10. No signature. Just a tip from someone watching. Maria's hands trembled. The world was shifting beneath her feet, and this time, she wasn't falling. She was rising. The next morning, she went to the pawn shop. It was small, dusty, the kind of place with old guitars, broken watches, and stolen purse hanging on the walls. The man behind the counter looked up, annoyed. "We don't take returns." "I'm not here to return," Maria said. "I'm here to ask about an item pawned back in May. A bracelet." He narrowed his eyes. "You got a receipt?" "No," Maria said, "but I think it was pawned illegally." The man shrugged. "Talk to the cops." She nodded slowly. Then she took out her phone and showed him the photo. His face changed. He stared at the screen a little too long. "All right," he muttered. "Wait here." He disappeared into a back room. Maria waited, heart pounding, trying not to hope too much. 5 minutes later, he returned with a logbook, faded, stained, barely legible. But there it was. Brandon W. Tennis bracelet. Atom. 1 ton. 200 cash. And driver's license on file. Chanan. Maria took a photo of the page. And then, the final blow, the clerk muttered. Kid looked high as a kite. I remember because he tried to sell it twice. Maria's jaw tightened. She thanked him, walked out slowly. And when she reached the sidewalk, she let out a laugh, short, sharp, bitter. They had destroyed her life to protect that boy, and now she had proof. But the bracelet wasn't the only thing that had disappeared. So had her daughter. Sophia had been in foster care for 1 day. Maria marked each one on her wall with a red pen. And now she was done marking. She was ready to fight back. At the courthouse information desk, Maria asked to file a motion. The clerk looked up, confused. "You're representing yourself." Maria nodded. He raised an eyebrow, then handed her a packet of forms. She spent 2 days filling them out, double-checking every line, attaching evidence, writing a sworn statement. The whole time, her hands never stopped shaking. But she didn't stop. Because fear was no longer the strongest thing in her body, conviction was. She filed for a civil suit. Defamation, emotional distress, Wrongful accusation. So, she also requested custody be restored immediately. At first, they told her it would take months, but then a judge, a Latina woman named Reyes, reviewed her file. She saw the documents, the porn record, the article, the handwritten letter from Sophia's school counselor. Maria is a loving, responsible parent. Sophia cries for her mother every night. The judge ordered a hearing expedited. In 17 days, Maria stared at the date circled on her calendar. The day she would stand in court, not as a maid, not as a defendant, but as a mother, as a warrior, as a woman with truth on her side. She bought a second-hand blazer for $7 at the thrift store. It was a little too big, but she liked how it felt, like armor. Sophia's drawings were still on her fridge, still crooked, still sacred. She looked at them one by one and whispered to herself, "They took my voice. They took my child. They made me feel small. Now they're going to remember my name." 17 days. That's how long Maria had to prepare. 17 nights of little sleep, endless reading, and whispering legal terms under her breath as she cleaned motel sinks at 2A. "Ma'am." She read until her vision blurred, rewrote her statement 5 times, practiced it aloud, over and over, in front of the bathroom mirror, not for perfection, but for power. She didn't want to cry in court. She wanted to speak with the calm of someone who knew the truth. And when the day finally arrived, she took the bus downtown, blazer on, hair pulled back tight, eyes forward. This wasn't a job interview. This wasn't a plea. This was war. The courthouse was colder than she expected. Not just the air, the silence. People walked like shadows. No eye contact. No smiles. Just case numbers and broken promises floating through the halls. Maria sat in the waiting area. She clutched her folder to her chest like a shield. Inside were her hopes, her daughter's future, her only shot. Then she saw them, the Walthams. Mr. Waltham, in a navy suit. Mrs. Waltham, in pearls and poison. And their lawyer, a smug man with gelled hair and a $1,000 watch. They didn't look at her, but she saw them. And for a moment, she didn't feel fear. She felt rage, cold, focused, controlled. She would not let these people steal another breath from her life. The hearing began. Judge Reyes presided. Maria stood alone at one table. The Walthams and their attorney sat at the other, papers spread out like weapons. Judge Reyes looked at Maria. "Mrs. Santiago, you've filed for a defamation suit, custody reinstatement, and damages for emotional distress. You're representing yourself." "Correct." Maria nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Her voice didn't tremble. "Proceed." Maria stepped forward. She spoke slowly, clearly. She told the story from the accusation, to the job loss, to the CPS visit, to her daughter's removal. She showed the pawn shop log, the security camera still, the newspaper article, even the receipt from the thrift store to show how far she'd come. She ended with a single line. "I may not have power, but I have proof, and I deserve justice." Chatter. For a moment, silence. Then the Waltham lawyer stood. He smiled. The kind of smile that said, "You've already lost. Your Honor, while we empathize with Ms. Santiago's situation," he began, "the family acted in good faith. They believed a theft had occurred. Their son's actions, though unfortunate, were not known to them at the time." Maria's eyes narrowed. "Lies. Smooth and practiced." The lawyer continued. "And as for the Child Protective Services involvement, that was a result of CPS's own investigation, not initiated directly by my clients." Maria's heart skipped. He was passing the blame, not just deflecting, weaponizing the system. Then came the blow. The lawyer handed the judge a document, a signed letter from CPS. It stated that Maria's apartment had concerning conditions, that Sophia had shown signs of emotional distress, and that Maria had displayed behavior suggesting instability. Maria's mouth went dry. She had never seen this letter, never been told this was part of the case. She stepped forward. "Your Honor, that's not true." CPS never explained. Judge Reyes raised a hand. "Mrs. Santiago, please wait until I finish reading." Minutes passed like hours. Maria stood still, shoulders stiff, breath shallow. Then the judge looked up. "I will allow this case to proceed," she said slowly. Maria exhaled. But, the judge added, I'm placing a temporary hold on the custody hearing. I need time to review the full CPS report. Maria blinked. What does that mean? It means, the judge said, your daughter remains in foster care for now. Maria didn't cry in court. She didn't scream. She just stood there, numb. The real blow wasn't the accusation. It wasn't the job loss. It wasn't even the night they took Sophia. It was this. Quiet. Official rejection. The kind that wears a robe and speaks with legal distance. Maria walked out of the courtroom. The Walthams walked the other way. Their lawyer winked at her as he passed, and something inside her broke, but not in the way they hoped. It wasn't weakness. It was fire. She sat on a bench outside the courthouse, pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and began writing every detail. The name of the lawyer, the exact words from the CPS letter, the date, the time, the tone. If they wanted to use the system to bury her, she'd learn to use the system to dig herself out, and then bury them with the truth. That night, she didn't go home. She went to Sophia's school. It was closed, dark, but the chain-link fence was still there. Maria reached through the bars and touched the swing set. She imagined Sophia's voice, her laugh, her tiny hands gripping the chains. She closed her eyes, whispered a promise. I will not let them erase us. Chum. And as the wind blew her hair across her face, she took a deep breath and started planning her next move. Maria didn't sleep for 2 days after the hearing. The words temporary hold echoed in her head like church bells at midnight loud. Empty. Cruel. They said it was procedural. They said it was standard. They said it wasn't personal. But everything about this was personal. She wasn't a thief. She wasn't unstable. She was a mother. But in the eyes of the court, she was just another brown face with no attorney and no address in a nice zip code. She needed a break. Not luck. Not pity. A real break. And it came, in the form of a stranger. 3 days after the hearing, Maria received a call. Ms. Santiago, the voice said. This is Elena Vargas. I work with CPS. I reviewed part of your case. Maria's spine stiffened. Are you here to take something else from me? She asked. Bluntly. A pause. Then a sigh. No, Elena said softly. I think something's been taken from you. That stopped Maria cold. What do you mean? I don't want to say more over the phone, Elena replied. But if you're willing, meet me tonight. Discreetly. Maria hesitated. She had seen enough games, enough setups. But something in Elena's voice, not pity, but urgency made her say yes. They met in a small diner off the freeway, the kind of place where the coffee is bad and the waitresses call you Hon. Elena sat in the far booth, wearing a hoodie over her work clothes. She was in her 30s, Latina, tired eyes but kind ones. Maria slid into the seat across from her. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then Elena said, You don't deserve what's happening to you. Maria folded her hands, waited. Elena pulled out a manila folder. This is your CPS file, she said. The one that was submitted by the original investigator, Sam Crenshaw. Maria frowned. I never met him. Elena nodded. You weren't supposed to. She opened the folder. There are reports in here that are, let's say, unusual. Maria leaned forward. The first visit the notes say, your apartment had no electricity, that there were roaches, that your daughter was underfed and emotionally detached. Maria blinked, stunned. What? That's a lie. I know, Elena said. She pulled out a second document. This is the field report submitted by the social worker who actually visited your home, Mrs. Reiner. Her notes say the place was clean, the child well-fed and affectionate, completely different. Maria's heart started to pound. They switched the reports. No, they buried the real one. Elena slid over another page. This is an internal email chain. Crenshaw flagged your case as high priority and said, and I quote, the employers are long-standing community partners and their judgment should be trusted. Maria's eyes narrowed. They meant the Walthams. Elena nodded slowly. This kind of favoritism, it happens more than you think, but rarely this blatantly. Maria sat back. It wasn't just the Walthams. The system had helped them, had turned against her without reason because she was poor, brown, and disposable. But not anymore, not with this. Eleanor, Maria whispered, why are you showing me this? Because I became a social worker to protect children, Elena said, not to help powerful people lie. Maria studied her for a moment. And what do you want in return? Elena looked her in the eye. Nothing, she said. Except one thing. Don't stop. Maria's throat tightened. You have no idea what they've done to me. Elena gave a sad smile. No, but I've seen what they've done to others. Maria left the diner with a copy of the real report in her hands. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She felt anchored. This wasn't just a defense anymore. This was a counterattack. And she photocopied everything. 3 copies. 1 in her safe box at the library, 1 mailed to herself, and 1 in her bag. Then, she filed a motion. Request to reopen CPS review based on new evidence. Request to sanction Officer Crenshaw. Request to subpoena communication between the Walthams and CP. It was bold, aggressive, and Judge Reyes granted the hearing. On the day of the hearing, Maria walked in with a calm so sharp it could cut. The Walthams were there, Mr. Waltham with a tighter jaw than usual. Mrs. Waltham pretending not to notice Maria at all. Their lawyer looked confident. Until Maria pulled out the buried CPS report. Until she read it aloud. Until she handed the judge the original version and the fake one. Until she quoted the internal email. The courtroom went silent. Even the stenographer paused. Maria ended with this. I've been accused. Silenced. Separated from my daughter. Not because I'm dangerous, but because I was easy to blame. Now I want the record corrected, and I want her back. Atom. Judge Reyes looked over the documents, her face unreadable. Then she spoke. I find grounds to question the original CPS recommendation. I will begin proceedings to restore custody, effective immediately pending final paperwork. Maria closed her eyes. She didn't exhale. She exhaled 23 nights of pain. But before she could fully breathe, Judge Reyes added, and I'm ordering an internal investigation into CPS Officer Crenshaw and the involvement of outside parties in the mishandling of this case. Maria didn't smile as she left the courthouse. She didn't gloat. She just walked straight head high, heart calm. The Walthams didn't say a word. Not to her, not to the press, not to anyone. But this wasn't over. Maria had Sophia back. Now, it was time to hold the liars accountable. Maria stood at the edge of Sophia's schoolyard, waiting. For months, she had imagined this moment, not with fireworks, not with applause, just her daughter, running into her arms. And when Sophia finally appeared, small backpack, messy hair, eyes wide, she didn't run, she walked. Slowly, carefully, Maria knelt, and Sophia dropped her backpack and fell into her mother's chest like she'd been holding her breath for 73 days. Neither said a word. They didn't need to. The hug spoke every language pain ever invented. The next few days were quiet. Maria took Sophia to the park, made her favorite soup, washed every piece of clothing twice. Even though it was clean, Sophia didn't ask questions. She just held Maria's hand while falling asleep. And Maria, she was still trying to believe it was real. But at night, when Sophia finally drifted off, Maria sat by the window with a notebook, writing, not just what happened, but why it happened. And the deeper she wrote, the more she realized, this story wasn't just hers. One afternoon, she returned to the courthouse to file another set of documents, a different kind. Request to speak at the County Oversight Committee hearing on Child Services Integrity. 10. She asked to be heard. Not as a plaintiff, not as a victim, but as a witness. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about exposure, because the truth didn't just belong in courtrooms. It belonged in headlines, in training manuals, in classrooms. It belonged in the mouths of women who had once whispered their pain into pillows. Word spread quickly. The woman who beat the Walthams without a lawyer was about to testify publicly. Some called her brave, others, reckless. But Maria didn't care what they called her. She cared about what came next. She began receiving letters from strangers, from housekeepers, from single mothers, from women in shelters, stories of eviction, of false reports, of children taken for safety, but never returned. Maria read every one. Some she cried over, some she couldn't finish, but all of them lit the same fire. Then came the call she didn't expect. A journalist. Her name was Dana Wu, reporter for the Hartford Weekly. She had followed the case, had pieced together enough to know something bigger was hiding beneath the official language. "I don't want to exploit you," Dana said over the phone. "I want to amplify you." Maria hesitated. She had lived in the shadows for so long, spoken only when spoken to. Now someone wanted her words in print. "Okay," Maria said, "but I don't want to be a symbol. I want to be a signal." Dana paused. "That's exactly what I'm looking for." The article came out a week later, front page, and the maid who defeated the machine. Maria Santiago's fight for her daughter and the truth. It didn't dramatize her pain. It didn't flatten her story. It told it raw, clean, honest. The internet exploded. Comments poured in, some hateful, but most hopeful. "You're not alone. You're the voice we didn't have. You gave me the strength to speak." Then came the phone call that changed everything. It wasn't from a lawyer, or a judge, or a reporter. It was from a Brandon Waltham. Maria didn't pick up the first time, or the second, but the third time she answered. "Maria," the voice said, hesitant, small. "Yes, it's me, Brandon. I wanted to say something." Silence. Then, "I was the one who stole the bracelet. You know that. Everyone knows now, but I want to say it anyway." Maria didn't speak. "I'm in rehab now. Court ordered. But it's working. For the first time. I'm not high. Still." Maria said nothing. Brandon continued. "My parents, they used me as a weapon. To destroy you. I let them. I was weak." Maria closed her eyes, then finally said, "You weren't weak. You were privileged. And you didn't use it to protect anyone." More silence. Then Brandon whispered, "I'm sorry. Maria didn't say I forgive you, because forgiveness wasn't a checkbox. It was a door and she wasn't ready to walk through it yet. Instead, she said, 'Get better, then do something with it,' and hung up." The next day, Maria took Sophia to a bookstore. They walked past a wall of memoirs. Sophia pointed to one. "Will you ever write yours?" "Mummy." Maria smiled. "I already am." Then she looked up, at a shelf labeled Justice, and whispered, "Not just for me, for all of us." That night, Maria opened her notebook again, but she didn't write about what happened. She wrote about what's next. She wrote, "A free workshop for immigrant parents. Know your rights. A hotline for reporting CPS misconduct. A fund for women fighting family court battles alone. A class in Spanish about legal basics and false accusations." Maria Santiago was no longer just a mother with a folder of proof. She was a woman with a plan, a woman with a voice, and the courage to use it not for revenge, but for reform. This was her turning point, and she was never going back. The courtroom was bigger this time, brighter, wider ceilings, more people, more eyes, but Maria had never felt more grounded. She wore the same blazer, same shoes, no makeup, no jewelry, just truth and a folder of names, because this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been silenced by paperwork, protocol, and polished lies. The county oversight committee hearing that had drawn a crowd. Some came to support her. Some came out of curiosity. Some came because they worked for CPS and were suddenly afraid they might be next. The Walthams didn't show. Of course not. But Maria didn't need them. She wasn't there to fight them anymore. She was there to expose a system that protected people like them and punished people like her. When her name was called, she stood slowly, walked to the microphone, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel small. She felt exactly the size she was meant to be. "Good morning," she began. "My name is Maria Santiago. I am not a lawyer, not a politician, not a person with power or influence or legacy. I am a mother. I was accused of theft without evidence, lost my job, lost my daughter, and nearly lost my sanity because someone powerful made a phone call and the system listened to them instead of the facts. The room went still. No coughs, no rustling papers, only Maria's voice firm, slow, unwavering. I went months without seeing my child, without knowing if she was scared, or cold, or hungry, because someone at CPS believed the Walthams over me, not because they had proof, but because they had status. She paused, looked at the row of commissioners in suits and glasses. Some looked away, some stared back, pale. She continued, I was told the report said I was unfit, that my home was unsafe, that my child was emotionally detached. She held up a sheet of paper. This is the original report, from the worker who actually visited me. It says the opposite. She dropped it on the table. Hard. Startled murmurs rippled through the gallery. I ask you, how many other reports were changed? How many other mothers were marked unfit, not because they were, but because they were easy to blame? She looked to her left, to where Sophia sat in the front row, her legs swinging, her hands folded. She is my reason. But this isn't just about her anymore. It's about yours, too. After her statement, the room erupted in quiet clapping. Not loud, not performative, just respectful. One commissioner leaned into the mic. Mrs. Santiago, he said, do you have names of others who were involved in your case's mishandling? Maria opened her folder. She read them aloud. Sam Crenshaw, the CPS supervisor who signed off on altered reports, the liaison who communicated directly with the Walthams but never documented any meetings, the officer who delivered the removal order to her home without a full investigation. She laid it all out. Calm, documented, bulletproof. Another commissioner asked, what would you like this committee to do? Maria didn't hesitate. Open every case Crenshaw touched in the past 5 years. Audit every community partner complaint processed without full investigation. Create a bilingual advocacy division for immigrant parents. And most of all, make it easier to challenge a false CPS report without needing a lawyer. The room was quiet again. Then one commissioner leaned back and whispered to another. Maria heard a phrase that hit like thunder. She's not wrong. The hearing ended. Maria walked out without applause, without media chasing her. But as she reached the steps outside, a woman in a floral blouse stopped her. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. They took my niece 3 years ago. I thought no one cared. Maria nodded. I care. She kept walking. Another woman stopped her, this time younger. A teenager. I want to be a lawyer someday. After today, I want to be one like you. Maria smiled. Then be better. Be louder. Be braver. The girl nodded. Chill. By the time she reached the sidewalk, Maria had 12 new messages, 7 from women, 3 from reporters, 1 from a non-profit, and 1 from the district attorney's office. Subject line, inquiry into Waltham CPS collusion allegation, request for interview. Maria paused, read it twice, then looked up at the sky. The clouds were moving, slowly, but they were moving. That night, Maria lit a candle in the window, not for hope, but for remembrance, for every name that would never get a hearing, for every mother who didn't have time to study the law, who didn't speak English, who didn't survive the system. She sat at the kitchen table with Sophia. They ate quietly. Then Sophia asked, Mummy, are we done fighting now? Maria looked at her, touched her face, and said, we're done fighting for us. Now we fight for everyone else. Tant. It started with whispers. First, among the staff at the courthouse, then in hushed corners of PTA meetings, whispers that the Walthams had paid their way through a CPS case, that they had connections, that their money didn't just buy silence, it bought decisions. Then came the headlines. Former CPS officer suspended amid bribery allegations. Diamond theft cover-up, tied to prominent Connecticut family. Ton. And finally, the name, Waltham. Ton. Bold. Front page. For the first time in decades, not associated with real estate deals or charity galas, but with corruption. Maria watched it unfold from the same couch she'd cried on months ago. Now, with Sophia beside her, the same sofa, different woman. Then, the calls started coming. At first, they were from reporters, then attorneys, then strangers people who used to work for the Walthams, maids, tutors, drivers. People who had signed NDAs, people who had stories, people who had fear. But now they had Maria. One email stood out. It came from a man named Garrett Lang, the Walthams' personal attorney. Subject line: Settlement offer confidential. Maria stared at it for a long time before opening it. The letter was polite, formal, and very clear. The Walthams were prepared to offer a settlement. $850,000. Tax-free. No admission of guilt. Immediate wire transfer. But there was a condition. Maria must agree not to speak about the case again in public, in media, or to any government body. In short, they wanted to pay for her silence. Maria sat with it for a full day. She didn't reply, didn't forward it. She just sat and thought, with that kind of money, she could buy a house, send Sophia to college, never clean another motel room again. She could finally breathe. But then she thought of the woman in the floral blouse, the teenage girl who wanted to be a lawyer, the files she'd been organizing for women who didn't even have their own copies of their CPS cases. She thought of the candle she lit, and the name she whispered, and suddenly, $850. And didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a muzzle. That night, Maria called Elena, the CPS worker who had helped her. "I need your opinion," Maria said. "I've been offered a settlement. It's more than I've ever seen." "And the catch?" Elena asked. "They want me to disappear." Elena was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maria, this system survives on quiet, on people disappearing. If you take that money, I'll still respect you. But if you don't," she paused, "I'll follow you anywhere." The next morning, Maria typed one line, to Garrett Lang, to the Walthams. "No. Thank you. My voice isn't for sale." Chol. Then she hit send, and just like that, the collapse began. 2 days later, the state announced a formal investigation into CPS misconduct. Brandon Waltham was subpoenaed. He testified under oath that his parents knew about the pawned bracelet weeks before they accused Maria. Worse, emails surfaced showing that Mrs. Waltham had asked Crenshaw to handle Maria's file. The word handle was all it took. Crenshaw resigned. Then came the lawsuits. 3 other families filed claims against the Walthams. Then 2 more. Then 10. Suddenly, the rich weren't untouchable. They were under siege. Maria was asked to speak on local TV, then national. She declined most of them, not because she was scared, because she was busy. Helping. Building. She partnered with a legal aid organization, started a non-profit with Eleanor called Clear Voice. It offered translation services for court documents, legal coaching for single parents, workshops on navigating family law for immigrants. They launched a website. The tagline, "Because the system is loud, but so are we." One afternoon, Maria received a handwritten letter, return address, unknown. Inside was a check, not from the Walthams, from Brandon, only $500, with a note. "I know I owe more than this, but I wanted to start where I should have with honesty. I'm sorry, Maria. I hope someday I can do something good with what you taught me." Maria stared at the note, then tore up the check. But she kept the message, not because she forgave him, but because even broken people deserved a chance at change, as long as they started with truth. A month later, she took Sophia to see the office space for Clear Voice. It was small, paint-chipped, dusty corners, but it was theirs. "Mummy," Sophia said, "can I decorate?" Maria smiled. Of course. Sophia taped one of her old drawings to the wall. It was a stick figure of a woman holding a megaphone. Above it, she wrote, "My mom is loud now." Maria didn't cry. She just sat at her new desk, opened a folder, and began reviewing her next case, because her war was never about a bracelet. It was about a system that silenced truth. And now that system was cracking. Maria didn't expect to be recognized in the grocery store. Not in sweatpants, not holding a box of cereal, not by a teenager in pink Crocs. "Are you that woman from the news?" the girl asked. Wide-eyed, Maria blinked. I guess I am. The girl smiled. You're cool. Then she walked away like it was nothing. But for Maria, it wasn't nothing. It was a shift. She was no longer anonymous, no longer just the maid, the woman who quietly folded sheets and disappeared behind doors. She was a story, a name, a face that meant something. The first time someone called her activist, she flinched. It was at a community panel. They introduced her that way. Activist Maria Santiago, founder of Clear Voice. She smiled politely. But inside, she didn't feel like an activist. She still felt like a mother who hadn't meant to start a war, only to end one. Clear Voice grew faster than anyone expected. They started with 2 volunteers. By spring, they had 12. They helped file motions, interpret documents, sit with mothers in family court. Maria became a speaker, church halls, libraries, even a TEDx event. Everywhere she went, people listened. They cried. They clapped. They hugged her after. And then they asked, "What's next?" She never had a good answer. Because the truth was, she hadn't planned this far. But the echo of Maria's voice came with consequences. Sophia changed, not overnight, but gradually. She used to tell Maria everything. Now, her answers were shorter. School was fine. Homework was done. She didn't want pancakes anymore. She wanted space. One night, Maria found her scrolling on her phone, tears in her eyes. "What's wrong, mi amor?" Maria asked. Sophia looked up, angry. "Why is my face on the internet?" Maria froze. Someone had posted a photo of them together from a rally. The caption called Maria a hero mother who fought back. But to Sophia, it felt like exposure. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I just wanted my mom." Maria's heart cracked open. She reached out, but Sophia pulled away. "I love you," Maria said. "I did this for you." Sophia looked down. "I know, but now I have to share you with the whole world." That night, Maria didn't sleep, not because of fear, but because of guilt. Had she saved her daughter, only to become someone unreachable? The next day, she cancelled a speaking engagement. Just one. Then 2. Then a week off from panels and Zooms. She spent time with Sophia. They went to the movies, to the lake. They baked cookies, burned half, laughed anyway. Maria started to remember the woman she had been, before microphones, before legal terms became her second language. Just a mother, and her daughter, in a kitchen that still smelled like lemon cleaner and hope. But the world didn't wait. Emails stacked up. Calls went unanswered. Her Clear Voice team begged for her return. And Maria, she stood between 2 doors. One led back into the fight, the other, into a quiet life. But neither was simple, because one came with impact, the other peace. One evening, Eleanor dropped by unannounced. She looked exhausted. "The city's launching a task force," she said. "They want you on it. It's paid. Advisory board. Policy changes. You'd have real power." Maria bit her lip. "What about my daughter?" Eleanor sat down. "She'll be proud. One day. But she needs you now. Not just in headlines." They sat in silence. Then Elena added, "You can say no, but if you do, someone else will fill your seat. Someone who doesn't know what it feels like to be you." That night, Maria walked into Sophia's room. She was asleep, one leg over the blanket, hair tangled like always. Maria sat at the edge of the bed, whispered, "I never wanted to be famous. Just free. For you. For us." She kissed Sophia's forehead, then stood up, not with certainty, but with grace. The next morning, she sent a reply to the city task force. "I'll serve, but I will not be a symbol. I will be a mother who fights smarter this time." At Clear Voice, she stepped back, not out. She trained younger women, passed on every trick she'd learned the hard way, taught them how to speak with strength, and how to rest without guilt. She said, "You don't have to set yourself on fire to light the way." Maria started saying no more often, and when she said yes, it meant something. She chose panels that led to policy. She chose interviews that centered the people, not her pain. She chose projects Sophia could join, like a book drive for kids in foster care. They worked side by side, and though it wasn't perfect, it was healing. One day, Sophia handed her a note. Just 4 words. And I'm proud of you. Town. Maria didn't cry, but later alone she read it again, folded it into her wallet, right behind the old photo of Sophia at age 2, right beside the worn-out CPS report that started it all. Because echoes fade, but legacy, that stays. And Maria Santiago, once silenced, once erased, was now echoing across courtrooms, classrooms, and kitchen tables, not as a victim, not even as a hero, but as a woman who chose voice over silence, and still chose love above all else. Maria stood in front of a blank wall. The new Clear Voice office had just expanded. 2 more rooms, a small kitchenette, and this wall freshly painted, waiting. It wasn't just drywall. It was space for something she'd been carrying for years. Not in boxes, but in her bones. Stories, not just hers, everyone's. She took a deep breath and pressed the first photo against the wall. It was grainy, black and white, a picture of her holding Sophia outside the courthouse the day she got her back, both of them smiling, tired, whole. Then came the second photo, a woman from Honduras, holding her court documents in one hand and her son in the other. A woman Maria had coached through a custody appeal and won. Then more came. Photos, letters, drawings from children, sticky notes with quotes like, "She didn't just fight, she taught me how." Town. This time, I didn't cry in court. Oh. They listened. Because I knew what to say. Atal. The wall grew. So did the feeling in Maria's chest. Not pride. Not even victory. It was something quieter. Something sturdier. Belonging. Oh. That evening, Maria and Sophia sat in their living room, folding laundry. "Remember when we had to dry clothes with a hairdryer?" Sophia asked, laughing. Maria chuckled. "Yes, and you burned a hole in your school shirt. Still passed that test." Though, Maria reached over and ruffled her hair. Sophia pulled away, mock annoyed. "Mom, I'm 15. Still my baby." They both smiled. Later, Sophia handed Maria a book she'd been reading. "Look at this line," she said, pointing. Maria read it aloud. "Justice is not about punishing the past. It's about protecting the future." Sophia nodded. "I think that's what you do now." Maria didn't respond right away, because the truth was, she'd been wondering the same thing. Was she still fighting? Or was she building? Maybe both. One morning, Maria received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a bracelet. Not fancy. No diamonds. Just a thin silver band, engraved with 2 words. "All you matter, Han," taped to it. A note in shaky handwriting. "I never said thank you, but because of you, I kept my daughter. You never knew me, but I knew your story. It saved me." Maria held the bracelet in her palm for a long time, not crying, just feeling. That night, she took a walk alone. No destination, just the city breathing around her. The air smelled like spring, the kind of warmth that only comes after long winters, not just of weather, but of the soul. She passed the diner where she met Elena, still open, still buzzing with neon and bad coffee. She paused at the courthouse. It was closed, dark, but she stood on the steps, not as someone defeated, not even as someone who won, but as someone who endured. And in that quiet space between memory and meaning, she forgave herself for staying silent, for trusting the wrong people, even for doubting she was enough, because in the end, she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to keep going. The next weekend, Clear Voice hosted its first statewide summit. 300 people showed up, parents, lawyers, social workers, students. Maria opened the day with a speech, but she didn't tell her story. She told Elena's, and the mother from Honduras, and the teenager who testified against her abuser and won. Then she said, "If you're in this room, it means one thing. You were meant to speak, and someone tried to stop you. But you're still here, and that is the real victory." Chan. The room rose in a standing ovation, but Maria didn't cry. Not anymore. She had shed enough tears to water a revolution. Now it was time to build gardens. After the summit, Sophia found her backstage. "Nice speech," she said. Maria smirked. Too long. Always, Sophia teased. Then she pulled something from her backpack. A folder. Inside, her college essay. Title: Raised by a Revolution. Maria blinked. Sophia shrugged. I hope it gets me into journalism school. Maria read the first line. My mom didn't break the system. She showed me how to live outside of it loud, loved, and unafraid. And that was the moment Maria Santiago finally let herself cry, because she realized she had already won. Not in court, not with a settlement, not even with headlines or policy change. She won when her daughter didn't have to fight the same war, when her voice echoed through someone else's strength, when silence finally stopped feeling like safety, and truth became home.